Welcome back. 3 years after the murder of George Floyd, new research looking at how Chicago's arts community is living up to the promises to fight racism and discrimination.
Joining us this morning, Nia Sanchez from Enrich Chicago to talk about it. Thanks for being here, Nia.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Let's start with where this came from, the genesis of looking at our communities or communities of color, and your specific journey into the arts world came out of 2020 and all of the unrest that we had, and we really looked at ourselves in a different light after that and trying to correct course, if you will, from what we've seen in the past.
Correct. I think the summer of 2020 and the tragedy surrounding the murder of George Floyd brought to the forefront of people's minds and understanding what we mean when we talk about racial justice and what's at stake when we talk about ending racism in the United States. And I think for everybody, no matter what sector you work in, no matter where you live, this is an issue of importance that has impact on your life. And so as we saw corporations and institutions of all kinds making these declarations, we thought it would be also something for the future to understand. How do we know? How do we know we're doing what we said we would do, especially when this work is happening over generations, right? George Floyd and his tragic death offered us an opportunity to see on the front line some of the people who've been doing this work for a long time. But make no mistake about it, people have been working on this for generations and will continue to work on it for generations, and we need to be accountable to that.
So talk to us more broadly about what the promises, the specific promises that were made by your member organizations in Chicago following George Floyd, and actually what the study found in terms of what promises were fulfilled and which ones weren't.
Sure. Well, without getting into too many specifics, just broad themes are talking about accountability to Black Americans, Black Chicagoans, specifically for the people we work with here in the arts. And that could mean hiring more people on, having more arts programming, having more resources in the community to support artistic expression and cultural life. And making a more equitable workplace for the people of color who already work there, right? And so that was the gist of the promises. We saw things in corporate America and in the private sector around greater access to funds, right, and a reinvestment in communities. Right. And so I think, again, across many sectors, we're having this moment now to wonder, whatever happened to that, right? We saw the headlines, we saw the statements, we saw the black squares on social media, but what has come as a result? And so this survey project really wanted to understand, for people who are impacted by systemic inequity, what is the real impact that these efforts are having on their lives, right? Substantively, materially, emotionally, how has their leadership in these arts institutions improved over time? Right? And so if we go back to that human experience, what is the human experience as a result of these statements? And we learned that a lot of people made statements. About a third of them had a plan to back up the statement. Many people have gone to these workshops and training experiences to understand what is the history we're referring to here, how do we participate in it, how do we disrupt it. And there is a sense in organizations of who has taken on these learnings and acted on them, and where have we fallen short in our leadership. And also, has your daily experience improved? What is the rate of daily microaggressions or discriminations or feeling of safety in your workplace? How is that different now than maybe it was 3 years ago, right? Using that moment as a point in time.
We are out of time, but I want to know, what are the payoffs? Have there been measurable improvements in those areas? We just had a lot of questions. What were the answers?
Right. I think the answers are that there's a lot more we can do to be public about the action steps that we're taking. There's a lot more that we can do to make sure that our employees feel safe bringing themselves to work. And there are continued changes to compensation, which have already begun, that we can continue to build on.
There will be, it is a long road, certainly. All right, Nina, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
And for more information about Enrich Chicago, and you can read the whole report at their website, enrichchi.org. Also find them on social media.